The mining drills hummed their steady rhythm across the red hills of Kepler-7, breaking apart ancient rock to reveal the precious metals hidden beneath. Alex Rodriguez wiped sweat from his forehead as he watched the day shift workers finish loading another transport cart with refined ore. 2 years of backbreaking work had turned this barren world into something resembling home for 43 human souls. New Haven Colony sat in a valley between 2 mountain ranges, its prefabricated buildings arranged in neat rows around the central processing plant. Solar panels caught the pale light of the distant star, powering the life support systems that kept everyone breathing in the thin atmosphere. It wasn't Earth, but it was theirs. Emma Walsh emerged from the biology lab, her tablet showing them latest soil analysis results. The xenobiologist had found traces of ancient microorganisms in the deeper rock layers, suggesting this world had once supported life. She looked up at the orange sky, wondering what other secrets this planet might hold. "Contact on long-range sensors," called out Tom Bradley from the communications hub. The young engineer's voice carried across the settlement's main plaza, causing several workers to stop and look up. 3 ships approaching from the outer system. Alex felt his stomach tighten. They were too far from Earth for rescue if this turned hostile. The colony's only weapons were mining explosives and a few personal sidearms. He activated the emergency protocol, sending coded signals to nearby human settlements, then walked to the communications center. The ships that appeared on the screen were unlike anything in human databases. Sleek silver vessels moved with impossible grace, their surfaces reflecting light in ways that suggested advanced materials. They approached slowly, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. "Unknown human settlement. This is Ambassador Thren of the Vorthak hegemony. We come in peace and friendship. Request permission to land and establish diplomatic contact." The voice came through the universal translator with perfect clarity, calm and measured. Alex exchanged glances with Emma, who had joined them in the communications hub. First contact with an alien species. Every human had dreamed of this moment, but actually facing it felt surreal. "Ambassador Thren, this is Colony Director Alex Rodriguez of New Haven. You have permission to land in the designated area north of our settlement. Welcome to Kepler-7. The lead Vorthak ship touched down with barely a whisper, its landing ramp extending with mechanical precision. Ambassador Thren emerged first, a tall reptilian figure covered in silver scales that caught the sunlight. His movement was fluid, graceful, and his large eyes seemed to take in everything at once. 2 other Vorthak followed, carrying what appeared to be gifts and recording devices. They approached the small group of humans that had gathered to witness history in the making. Alex stepped forward, extending his hand in the universal gesture of peace. Thren studied the offered hand for a moment, then extended his own clawed appendage to complete the gesture. His grip was firm but careful, as if he understood the significance of the moment. "Director Rodriguez, it is an honor to make contact with your species. The Vorthak hegemony has been observing human expansion with great interest. Your people show remarkable adaptability and determination." Over the following days, the Vorthak proved to be fascinating guests. They set up a small camp near their ship and began what appeared to be genuine cultural exchange. Thren asked countless questions about human society, government, and technology. He seemed particularly interested in Earth's population centers and the locations of other human colonies. Emma found herself spending hours with the alien visitors, sharing information about human biology and learning about Vorthak physiology in return. The aliens appeared to breathe a similar atmosphere and showed remarkable interest in human emotional responses to various situations. "Your species displays such interesting reactions to stress and conflict," Thren observed during one of their conversations. "Most fascinating. Tell me, how do humans typically respond when faced with overwhelming force?" Emma explained human fight-or-flight responses, pack behavior, and survival instincts. Thren listened intently, occasionally making notes on a device that projected holographic symbols in the air. The Vorthak shared their own gifts with the colonists. Beautiful crystalline sculptures that changed color with temperature, tools that seemed more advanced than they actually were, and star charts showing nearby systems. Alex noticed that none of the gifts had any real strategic value, but they impressed the colonists and helped build trust. Tom Bradley spent most of his time studying the Vorthak ship's external features, trying to understand their propulsion system. The aliens were remarkably open about letting him examine the outer hull, though they politely declined to show him the interior systems. Remarkable engineering, Tom told Alex after his third day of examination. But there's something odd about the energy readings I'm getting. Meanwhile, the cultural exchange continued. The Vorthak learned about human art, music, and literature. They seemed particularly interested in human military history, asking detailed questions about wars, tactics, and how human governments organized their defense forces. Your species has such a rich history of conflict, Thren observed to Alex one evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky deep purple. Yet you colonize peacefully, sharing resources and knowledge. Most curious. Alex explained humanity's evolution from tribal warfare to global cooperation. The long journey toward peace that had enabled interstellar expansion. Thren nodded thoughtfully, making more notes on his device. Yes, your transformation from a warlike species to peaceful explorers is remarkable. It suggests great wisdom and maturity. The galaxy needs more species like humanity. The compliments felt good, and Alex found himself sharing more information about human settlements, trade routes, and communication networks. The Vorthak seemed genuinely interested in establishing formal diplomatic relations and possibly trade agreements. But Tom Bradley's unease grew stronger each day. His engineering background made him notice patterns others missed. The energy signatures around the colony had changed since the aliens arrived. Subtle alterations in electromagnetic fields suggested the presence of scanning equipment, far more sophisticated than anything the Vorthak had openly displayed. On the 7th day of contact, Tom made his discovery. Hidden sensors placed around the colony's perimeter, so advanced they barely registered on human detection equipment. The Vorthak weren't just visiting. They were studying, measuring, and cataloging everything about the human settlement. He found Alex in the evening, away from Vorthak observation. We have a problem. They're not just talking to us. They're scanning everything. Our defenses, our technology, our population. This isn't cultural exchange. This is intelligence gathering. Alex felt cold dread settle in his stomach as he looked across the settlement toward the Vorthak camp. Ambassador Thren stood silhouetted against their ship's lights, and for the first time, his posture didn't look diplomatic. It looked predatory. The peaceful first contact humanity had dreamed of was about to become something else entirely. The morning alarm echoed across New Haven Colony, as it had every day for 2 years, calling workers to their shifts in the mining tunnels. But today felt different. Tom Bradley's discovery the night before had spread through the settlements, leadership like poison, creating an undercurrent of tension that even the Vorthak visitors seemed to notice. Alex Rodriguez stood in the colony's administrative building, staring at the data Tom had collected. Electromagnetic signatures, energy, patterns, and scan traces painted a clear picture of systematic surveillance. The friendly aliens who had spent a week learning about human culture were actually conducting detailed intelligence operations. Emma Walsh entered the room carrying her own tablet, her face grim. I've been analyzing the questions they asked me about human biology and psychology. They weren't interested in academic exchange. They wanted to know our physical limitations, our emotional breaking points, and our social structures. Through the window, they could see Ambassador Thren and his companions moving around their camp, with the same calm efficiency they had displayed since arrival. Nothing in their behavior suggested they knew their deception had been discovered. We need to confront them, Alex decided. If this is some kind of misunderstanding, we can resolve it diplomatically. If it's not, he didn't finish the sentence, but everyone in the room understood. 43 colonists with mining equipment faced 3 aliens with technology capable of interstellar travel. The math wasn't encouraging. Alex walked across the settlement toward the Vorthak camp, his hands empty and visible. Tom and Emma followed at a distance, ready to raise the alarm if things went wrong. The morning sun cast long shadows between the prefabricated buildings, making the colony feel smaller and more vulnerable than ever. Thren turned as Alex approached, his reptilian features arranged in what might have been a smile. "Good morning. Director Rodriguez, I trust you slept well? We need to talk, Ambassador, about the scanning equipment you've placed around our colony." The change in Thren was instant and complete. The diplomatic mask vanished, replaced by cold calculation. His large eyes narrowed and his graceful posture shifted into something more predatory. The other two Vorthak moved to flank Alex, their movements sudden and coordinated. "Ah," Thren said, his voice losing all pretense of warmth. "You discovered our surveillance devices. Impressive for such a primitive species. We calculated only a 12% probability of detection before mission completion." Alex felt his blood turn to ice water. Mission completion? Thren activated a device on his wrist, and the air above the Vorthak camp shimmered. Massive shapes began materializing as cloaking fields deactivated. Warships, dozens of them, hanging in Kepler-7's orbit like suspended nightmares. Each vessel dwarfed anything in the human fleet, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. "The Vorthak hegemony has been observing human expansion for 8 standard months," Thren explained with clinical detachment. "Your species represents a minor nuisance in this sector. You consume resources and occupy territory that could be better utilized by more advanced civilizations." More Vorthak soldiers emerged from their ships, weapons drawn and pointed at the small group of humans. Emma and Tom were quickly surrounded and herded toward Alex's position. Other colonists began gathering, confused by the sudden change in their visitors' behavior. "You will be relocated to designated work facilities on 3 different worlds," Thren continued. "Your technical knowledge will be extracted and cataloged. Those who cooperate will receive adequate nutrition and shelter. Those who resist will serve as examples to encourage compliance from others." Alex found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. "You're talking about slavery. We're talking about resource optimization. Your species shows potential for manual labor and basic technical support. Consider it an honor to serve the hegemony's expansion goals." Emma stepped forward, her scientific mind still trying to process what was happening. "You studied us for months. You must understand that humans don't respond well to forced captivity." Thren made a sound that might have been laughter. "Dr. Walsh, your species' psychological profile is remarkably simple. You show aggression in small groups but surrender quickly when faced with overwhelming opposition. Your colonial expansion patterns suggest a peaceful, cooperative nature that avoids conflict whenever possible." He gestured toward the orbiting warships. "You have 43 individuals armed with mining equipment facing a battle fleet designed to pacify entire star systems. Your emotional attachment to survival will override any aggressive impulses within hours." Tom Bradley spoke up, his engineer's mind working through the implications. "You're not just taking this colony, you're going after other human settlements." "Simultaneously," Thren confirmed. "While we've been conducting cultural exchange here, other Vorthak forces have been positioning themselves near major human population centers. Earth, Mars Colony, the Europa stations, New Singapore, all the Outer Rim settlements. The coordinated strikes begin in 6 hours." The casual way he discussed the enslavement of billions of humans sent rage coursing through Alex's veins. But he forced himself to remain calm, to think tactically. The colonists were being herded into the central plaza, surrounded by armed aliens who clearly considered them livestock. "Our governments will respond," Alex said. "The Colonial Defense Force, Earth's Fleet Command, they'll come for us." "With what?" Thren asked. "Your military assets are scattered across dozens of systems designed for exploration and protection against pirates. The hegemony has studied your defensive capabilities extensively. Your largest battleships are no match for our escort frigates." He moved closer to Alex, his scaled face showing what might have been curiosity. "Your species interests us precisely because you're so predictable, emotional, cooperative, eager to negotiate. These traits made you easy to study and easier to predict. You'll surrender to save lives. You'll cooperate to minimize suffering. You'll work efficiently because you believe compliance offers the best chance for eventual freedom." Emma watched the Vorthak soldiers organizing the colonists into groups, and something cold settled in her chest. These aliens had spent months studying humanity, but they had fundamentally misunderstood what they were observing. "You think our cooperation makes us weak?" she said quietly. "I think your cooperation makes you manageable," Thren replied. "Aggressive species are difficult to control and require constant supervision. Peaceful species like yours require only the proper incentives." Alex noticed Tom had managed to reach the communications console during the chaos. The young engineer was trying to look casual while entering commands, but Alex could see the desperate focus in his movements. "You made one mistake in your calculations, Ambassador," Alex said, trying to buy Tom more time. "Enlighten me. You assumed that peaceful expansion meant peaceful capability. You thought cooperation indicated weakness rather than strength. You studied our civilian colonies and our exploration vessels, but you never asked what we might be hiding." Thren's expression didn't change, but something in his posture suggested attention. "Your species lacks the technological advancement for effective military resistance." Tom's fingers flew across the communication panel, entering the emergency codes Alex had hoped they would never need. A single message burst across the colonial communication network, coded but unmistakable. To anyone trained to receive it, the message was simple: New Haven compromised. Pattern recognition confirmed. They studied us, but they never understood what they were looking at. As the transmission completed, Tom looked up and met Alex's eyes. The engineer's expression was grim, but there was something else there. Something that looked almost like anticipation. Ambassador Thren noticed the exchange. "What did you just transmit?" Alex smiled for the first time since the confrontation began. "We just told the rest of humanity that someone finally gave us a real reason to stop pretending to be peaceful. The Vorthak had made first contact with the wrong species at exactly the wrong time, and they were about to discover that humans had spent centuries perfecting something far more dangerous than exploration technology. They had perfected the art of coordinated warfare." Deep beneath the surface of Luna Station, Admiral Rebecca Stone received Tom Bradley's transmission at 0347 hours. The coded message appeared on her personal terminal with maximum priority encryption, triggering protocols that had been in place since humanity first reached for the stars. She read it twice, then activated the secure communication line to Earth. Within minutes, similar messages were flashing across military networks throughout human space. Mining colonies began shutting down non-essential operations. Trade vessels changed course toward predetermined coordinates. Civilian administrators stepped aside as military personnel emerged from positions they had held in secret for years. President David Chen stood in the Situation Room deep beneath the Swiss Alps, surrounded by military leaders who had been preparing for this moment since the first human colony ships left Earth. The wall displays showed the positions of every human settlement, every ship, every resource depot across 47 different star systems. "How long do we have?" Chen asked. "The Vorthak fleet position suggests simultaneous strikes in 5 hours, responded General Patricia Hayes. "But our people are already moving. The sleeper protocols activated across all sectors within 30 minutes of the New Haven transmission." Chen nodded grimly. The Vorthak thought they were attacking a scattered collection of peaceful colonies defended by exploration vessels and civilian security forces. They had no idea what humanity had actually built during 2 centuries of expansion. On Titan Base, Commander Rick Thompson watched mining platforms transform before his eyes. External panels slid away to reveal weapon systems that had been hidden, in plain sight for decades. The massive ore processors that had seemed so innocent were actually automated weapon manufacturing facilities, capable of producing military hardware at an incredible rate. Similar transformations were occurring throughout human space. The peaceful farming colony on Proxima 3 revealed underground bunker systems that could house 10,000 soldiers. The research station orbiting Wolf 359 dropped its civilian facade to become a forward military command center. Trading posts became ammunition depots. Explorer ships shed their outer hulls to reveal warship configurations. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in the xenopsychology department at Earth University, watching news feeds from across human space as the military buildup accelerated. As humanity's leading expert on alien psychology, she had helped design the protocols now being activated. They studied us for months, she told the emergency council via hologram. They watched our colonies, our ships, our expansion patterns, but they made a critical error in analysis. They assumed our peaceful behavior indicated limited military capability. The holographic display showed Vorthak fleet positions throughout human space, massive warships moving toward what their commanders believed were defenseless targets. Sarah shook her head at their tactical blindness. They never considered that our peaceful expansion might be deliberate strategy, that we might have been preparing for exactly this scenario since we first left Earth. They saw cooperation and assumed weakness. They never imagined we might cooperate specifically to prepare for war. On the outer rim, the cargo hauler Star Trader received its activation codes and began its own transformation. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, Alex's sister, watched her crew shed their civilian roles and take positions at military stations that had been hidden throughout the ship. The cargo bay opened to reveal fighter craft. The merchant vessel revealed itself as a heavy assault carrier. All stations report ready, her tactical officer announced. Weapon systems online, fighter squadrons prepared for launch. Lisa activated the ship's new identification beacon. This is Admiral Rodriguez of the 5th Attack Squadron. All units prepare for combat operations. The Vorthak had studied human shipping manifests and identified the Star Trader as a typical civilian vessel. They had no idea it carried enough firepower to level a city, or that Lisa Rodriguez held the rank of admiral in humanity's hidden military structure. Similar revelations were occurring throughout the combat zone. The Vorthak had identified what they thought were key military targets, but those installations were actually decoys. The real military infrastructure had been hidden inside civilian operations for decades. Ambassador Thren stood in the command center of his flagship, reviewing final preparations for the simultaneous strikes. His tactical displays showed human settlements across dozens of systems, all apparently defenseless and unaware of their approaching fate. Biological scans confirm minimal military presence at all target locations, his intelligence officer reported. Human defensive capabilities remain within predicted parameters. Thren nodded with satisfaction. The operation would be completed within hours, adding billions of human workers to the hegemony's labor force. The humans' emotional attachment to their civilians would ensure compliance once the scale of their defeat became apparent. But deep in Earth's command centers, President Chen was delivering a very different assessment to humanity's military leaders. The wall screens showed real-time positions of every human military asset, a network that spanned light years and included thousands of vessels the Vorthak had never detected. Gentlemen, ladies, the moment we've prepared for has arrived. For 200 years, we've expanded peacefully while building the most distributed military network in galactic history. Every colony, every trading post, every exploration vessel has been part of this system. He gestured toward the displays showing Vorthak fleet positions. They think they're attacking defenseless civilians. They're actually walking into the largest, coordinated military operation humanity has ever mounted. General Hayes stepped forward. All units report ready status. Phase 1 assets are in position for immediate response. Phase 2 forces are moving to intercept positions. Phase 3 reserves are standing by. Chen looked at the images from New Haven, showing his people in alien captivity. When he spoke, his voice carried a coldness that sent chills through everyone present. The Vorthak wanted to test our resolve. They wanted to see how humans respond to overwhelming force. Signal all commands. They're about to get their education. On New Haven, Alex Rodriguez watched Vorthak soldiers organizing the colonists into transport groups. The aliens moved with confident efficiency, secure in their technological superiority and their understanding of human psychology. But Alex noticed something the aliens missed. Small signals between the colonists, hand gestures, eye contact, body language that spoke of coordination and preparation. Tom Bradley caught his eye and nodded almost imperceptibly toward the communications console. The Vorthak had cut off all civilian communications, but they hadn't detected the military-grade quantum entanglement transmitter hidden in the colony's power grid. Tom's original message had been only the beginning. New Haven was now serving as a forward observation post, feeding real-time intelligence to human military forces throughout the sector. Ambassador Thren approached Alex with what might have been satisfaction. Your transmission was intercepted and analyzed. A simple distress call to your colonial administration. Quite predictable. Alex met his gaze without flinching. You intercepted the message we wanted you to intercept. You analyzed the code we wanted you to analyze. You reached exactly the conclusions we intended you to reach. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Thren's reptilian features. Explain. We've been preparing for this contact since humanity first reached the stars. Every colony, every ship, every installation has been designed with one purpose: to survive long enough for the real military to respond. You studied our civilian operations and assumed that's all we had. Alex gestured toward the alien warships hanging in orbit above them. You're not conquerors, Ambassador. You're participants in the largest military exercise humanity has ever conducted, and class is about to begin. In the distance, new stars began to appear in Kepler-7's sky, ships dropping out of hyperspace with the precision of a military operation that had been planned and rehearsed for decades. The Vorthak were about to discover what humans had really been building while they thought they were watching peaceful colonists. The age of humanity's hidden strength was about to end, and something far more dangerous was about to take its place. The first wave of human ships dropped out of hyperspace around Kepler-7 with perfect tactical precision, their approach vectors calculated to maximize confusion among the Vorthak fleet. What had appeared to be civilian cargo vessels on long range, sensors revealed themselves as something entirely different when their true configurations activated. Captain Maria Santos watched from the bridge of the Peaceful Dawn as her ship's outer hull panels slid away to reveal the weapons arrays hidden beneath. The ship's registration listed it as a botanical research vessel, but its true identity was far more lethal. She commanded a heavy battlecruiser with enough firepower to reduce the Vorthak flagship to debris. All stations report combat ready, her tactical officer announced. Enemy fleet shows signs of confusion. They're trying to understand how 30 cargo ships just became a strike force. Maria smiled grimly. Signal all units. Time for the Vorthak to learn what happens when you threaten human civilians. Begin Operation Homecoming. The space around Kepler-7 erupted into chaos as the human fleet engaged the Vorthak warships. But this wasn't the desperate last stand the aliens had expected. The human ships moved with coordinated precision, their tactics revealing years of preparation and planning. On the planet's surface, Ambassador Thren watched the orbital battle with growing alarm. His fleet's tactical displays showed impossible readings. The human vessels were not only matching Vorthak technology, but exceeding it in several key areas. Sir, we're receiving emergency signals from Fleet Command. His communications officer reported, voice tight with stress. The simultaneous strikes on other human colonies are encountering similar resistance. The humans were prepared for us. Alex Rodriguez observed the confusion spreading through the Vorthak ground forces. Their confidence was evaporating as reports filtered down from the orbital engagement. The easy victory they had anticipated was turning into something far more challenging. Surprised, Ambassador? Alex asked. You spent months studying our peaceful expansion. Did you ever consider that peace might be a strategic choice rather than a limitation? Thren's large eyes fixed on Alex with new attention. Your species lacks the industrial capacity for this level of military preparation. Our intelligence indicated minimal defensive capabilities. Your intelligence saw what we wanted you to see. Every mining operation, every trade mission, every scientific expedition has been part of a military buildup spanning 2 centuries. We didn't hide our preparations. We integrated them into everything we did. The sound of atmosphere-to-surface shuttles descending made everyone look up. Human forces were landing around the colony perimeter, but these weren't rescue ships. They were assault transports carrying soldiers who moved with professional efficiency. Commander Diana Park led the ground assault team that secured New Haven's outer defenses. Her troops weren't colonists or civilian security forces. They were elite Marines who had been positioned throughout human space waiting for exactly this scenario. Colony secure, she reported to Maria Santos. Vorthak ground forces are surrendering. They weren't prepared for organized military resistance. But the human response wasn't limited to defending attacked colonies. Intelligence gathered from captured Vorthak vessels revealed the locations of hegemony bases, supply lines, and command centers throughout this sector of the galaxy. Admiral Stone coordinated the expanding operation from her command ship, newly arrived in the Kepler-7 system. The merchant vessel that had seemed so innocent was actually a mobile fleet command center, bristling with advanced communication equipment and strategic planning systems. Phase 2 is now active, she announced across all channels. We're not just repelling an invasion, we're ending the threat permanently. Human forces began appearing in Vorthak space with the same precision they had shown in defending their own territory. Supply convoys found themselves facing human warships that had seemingly materialized from nowhere. Military bases discovered human forces already in position around their perimeters. The Vorthak had studied human expansion patterns, but they had completely misunderstood what they were observing. What looked like peaceful colonization was actually the deployment of a distributed military network. Trade routes were supply lines. Civilian settlements were forward bases. Explorer ships were reconnaissance platforms. General Robert Kim commanded the task force that appeared in the Vorthak home system, his ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation around the aliens' capital world. The defenders scrambled to respond, but they were facing an enemy that had planned this operation for decades. This is General Kim of the Terran Defense Force. He broadcast on all Vorthak frequencies. Your forces attacked human civilians. Your government declared war on our species. We are here to discuss the terms of your surrender. The response from the Vorthak capital was predictable. Threats, demands for withdrawal, assertions of superior firepower. Kim listened patiently, then gave the order that changed galactic politics forever. Target their military installations. Show them what human engineering can accomplish when we stop pretending to be peaceful. The bombardment that followed was precise, devastating, and completely one-sided. Human weapons technology, developed in secret for 2 centuries, proved superior to anything in the Vorthak arsenal. Their planetary defenses crumbled within hours. But it was the psychological impact that truly broke Vorthak resistance. The aliens had built their empire on the assumption that overwhelming technological superiority guaranteed victory. Facing humans who matched and exceeded their capabilities was beyond their understanding. Ambassador Thren, now a prisoner aboard Maria Santos's ship, requested a final meeting with the human commanders. He was escorted to the conference room, his scaled features showing something that might have been respect mixed with confusion. We studied your species for months, he said quietly. We analyzed your colonies, your ships, your expansion patterns. How did we miss this level of military preparation? Captain Santos leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. Because you were looking for threats, and we didn't appear threatening. You saw peaceful expansion and assumed limited military capability. You never considered that our peaceful expansion might be the military capability. She gestured toward the tactical displays showing human forces throughout Vorthak space. Every colony you observed was a military base. Every trade ship was a potential warship. Every civilian installation was part of a weapons network. We didn't hide our military from you. We integrated it so completely into our civilization that you couldn't recognize it. Thren shook his head slowly. But the resources required for such preparation, the coordination necessary, the long-term planning involved. 200 years of careful development, Santos confirmed. We learned from our own history that peace requires the capability to defend it. Every human settlement, every ship, every installation was designed with dual purposes. Civilian operations that could transform into military assets when threatened. The Vorthak ambassador looked at the displays showing his people's forces in full retreat throughout the sector. Your species fights with unprecedented coordination. Individual ships, entire fleets, ground forces, all working in perfect harmony. Santos nodded. You studied our cooperation and saw weakness. You never realized that our greatest strength isn't our technology or our individual capabilities. It's our ability to work together toward common goals. When you threatened our species, you didn't just attack individual colonies. You attacked the entire human network. Through the conference room's viewport, Thren could see human ships coordinating rescue operations for Vorthak civilians, providing medical aid to wounded soldiers, and beginning the complex process of dismantling the hegemony's military infrastructure. "What happens now?" he asked. Maria Santos stood and walked to the viewport, watching human forces coordinate with former Vorthak subject species who were already declaring independence from the collapsed hegemony. "Now you learn what humans do after we win a war, Ambassador. We help our former enemies rebuild into something better." The Vorthak had expected to find a weak species suitable for exploitation. Instead, they had awakened something that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy, and they were about to discover that humanity's approach to victory was even more dangerous than their approach to warfare. 6 months after the first Vorthak ship landed on Kepler 7, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The Vorthak hegemony no longer existed as a political entity, its territory divided among newly independent species that had spent generations under alien rule. What had begun as an attempted conquest of humanity had become the largest liberation operation in recorded galactic history. General Lucas Thompson stood on the observation deck of the New Dawn, humanity's newest command vessel, watching the construction efforts around the former Vorthak capital world. Human engineering teams worked alongside former enemy soldiers and liberated subject species to build something unprecedented, a galactic council based on cooperation rather than domination. The final battle had lasted exactly 43 minutes. The Vorthak ruling council had surrendered after human forces demonstrated they could disable the planet's defenses, neutralize all military installations, and establish orbital control without causing civilian casualties. It wasn't just a military defeat. It was a complete demonstration of superior planning, technology, and tactical coordination. Emma Walsh, now serving as humanity's Director of Interspecies Relations, reviewed the psychological profiles that had led to this moment. The Vorthak had made their fatal error in the first days of contact, misreading human nature so completely that their entire strategy had been based on false assumptions. They saw our peaceful expansion and concluded we were weak, she reported to the new Galactic Council during its first official session. They observed our cooperation and assumed we would surrender quickly when faced with superior force. They never imagined that our peace was a strategic choice backed by overwhelming military capability. The council chamber contained representatives from 47 different species, most of them former subjects of the Vorthak hegemony. They listened with keen attention as Emma explained the psychological principles that had shaped human development for centuries. Humanity spent millennia learning that sustainable peace requires the capability to defend it. We developed our military infrastructure in secret, not to hide weakness, but to avoid unnecessary conflicts with species who might view our preparations as threats. Ambassador Thren, now serving as a liaison between his people and the new galactic government, raised a clawed hand to speak. His months in human captivity had changed him, though whether the change was positive remained to be seen. "Dr. Walsh, your species displayed capabilities that exceeded our most optimistic projections of your potential. Our intelligence gathering was extensive. How did we fail so completely to understand your true nature?" Emma considered the question carefully. The former Vorthak ambassador had cooperated fully during his interrogation, providing detailed information about his people's expansion methods and psychological analysis techniques. "You studied our civilian operations and assumed they represented our full capabilities. You never considered that civilian operations might be military operations disguised as civilian activities. Every human colony, trade mission, and exploration vessel served dual purposes." She activated a holographic display showing the scope of humanity's hidden military network. The assembled representatives watched in amazement as peaceful settlements revealed their true nature as forward military. Bases, trade vessels became warships, and scientific installations transformed into weapons manufacturing centers. "But more importantly," Emma continued, "you misunderstood the relationship between human cooperation and human aggression. You assumed that our willingness to work together indicated weakness. You never considered that we might work together, specifically to become more dangerous." President Chen, attending the council session via hologram from Earth, nodded approvingly. The transformation of galactic politics had exceeded humanity's most optimistic projections. The Vorthak's attempted conquest had created the opportunity for something unprecedented, a galactic civilization based on cooperation between equals rather than domination by the strongest. The Vorthak made one fundamental error, Chen said, his voice carrying across the council chamber. They assumed that studying our behavior would reveal our capabilities. They never realized that our behavior was designed to conceal our capabilities until the moment we chose to reveal them. Captain Alex Rodriguez, recently promoted to admiral and now commanding the New Haven defense sector, stood before the assembled representatives. The former mining colony director had become a symbol of humanity's transformation from apparent victims to galactic peacekeepers. 6 months ago, my colony was attacked by forces that believed humans were weak and easily conquered. The Vorthak studied us, cataloged our responses, and planned our enslavement. They made detailed psychological profiles of our species based on civilian interactions and peaceful expansion patterns. He gestured toward Ambassador Thren, who shifted uncomfortably under the attention of dozens of alien species. They never asked the right questions. They asked what humans do when threatened. They should have asked what humans do when we're angry. The transformation had been complete and irreversible. Human military forces hadn't just defeated the Vorthak hegemony. They had systematically dismantled every aspect of the alien empire, while simultaneously establishing humanitarian aid programs for liberated populations. Dr. Sarah Kim presented her final analysis to the council, explaining the psychological factors that had made the Vorthak's defeat inevitable once they chose to attack human civilians. The hegemony's expansion model was based on intimidation and overwhelming force. They conquered species by demonstrating superior technology and breaking their will to resist. This approach worked against civilizations that viewed warfare as a last resort to be avoided. She paused, looking directly at the former Vorthak officials in the chamber. But humanity developed differently. We spent centuries perfecting warfare against ourselves. We learned to coordinate global military responses. We developed technologies specifically designed for large-scale conflict. When the Vorthak attacked our civilians, they didn't just threaten individual colonies. They challenged our entire species. The results spoke for themselves. Human forces had appeared throughout Vorthak space with precision that suggested decades of preparation. Supply lines were cut, military installations were neutralized, and government centers were occupied before the aliens could mount effective resistance. But it was humanity's post-victory behavior that had truly shocked the galaxy. Instead of establishing human dominance over former Vorthak territory, Earth's government had immediately begun establishing the frameworks for interspecies cooperation. Admiral Stone addressed the council from her flagship, still stationed in the former Vorthak home system. Humanity didn't seek this conflict, but we finished it completely. The Vorthak hegemony no longer exists because we eliminated every aspect of their ability to threaten peaceful species. She activated displays showing the scope of human military operations. In 6 months, we disabled 400 military installations, liberated 37 subject species, and established security networks across 12 star systems. We did this not to create a human empire, but to ensure that no species ever again faces the choice between slavery and extinction. Tom Bradley, now serving as chief engineer for the Galactic Defense Initiative, presented the technological integration programs that were transforming former Vorthak worlds. Human engineering teams worked alongside liberated populations to convert military infrastructure into civilian development projects. We're not conquerors, he explained to the assembled representatives. We're problem solvers. The Vorthak created a galactic threat that required a comprehensive solution. We provided that solution. The session concluded with the formal establishment of the Galactic Cooperation Accord, a treaty system that would govern interspecies relations throughout the sector. Every species would maintain sovereignty over their territory while contributing to collective defense against future threats. Ambassador Thren requested permission to address the council one final time. The former representative of a collapsed empire stood before the representatives of dozens of liberated worlds, his words carrying the weight of complete defeat. The Vorthak hegemony believed that superior technology and overwhelming force could subjugate any species. We studied humanity for months, cataloged your responses, and planned your conquest. We saw your peaceful expansion and cooperative behavior. We concluded you were weak. He paused, his reptilian features showing something that might have been regret. We never understood that your peace was a choice, not a limitation. We never realized that your cooperation made you more dangerous, not less. We attacked a species that had spent centuries preparing for exactly our type of threat. Emma Walsh stood to deliver the final statement of the historic session. As humanity's representative to the new Galactic Council, her words would shape interspecies relations for generations. The Vorthak studied our civilian operations and missed our military preparations. They observed our peaceful expansion and failed to recognize our strategic capabilities. They saw our cooperation and assumed weakness instead of understanding it as coordinated strength. She looked around the chamber at representatives from dozens of worlds, many of them breathing free air for the first time in generations. Let this be understood throughout the galaxy. Humanity seeks peaceful coexistence with all species. We will trade, cooperate, and share knowledge with any civilization that approaches us in good faith. But we will never again allow peaceful species to face extinction because aggressive civilizations mistake cooperation for weakness. The memorial wall outside the council chamber bore simple inscriptions in dozens of languages, but they all conveyed the same message. The first inscription, in human standard, read, "Here ended the Vorthak hegemony. Here began the age of galactic cooperation. Here, peaceful species learned they were no longer alone." Below that, in the flowing script of the Vorthak language, a final inscription served as both memorial and warning. They studied us. They planned against us. They attacked our civilians. They learned that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our numbers. It was our refusal to let aggression go unanswered. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the stars for centuries. Underestimate humanity's capacity for peace and discover humanity's capacity for war.